Hi everyone. In this lecture, we're going to go through the solutions to the practice activities that we looked at in the last lecture. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here I am inside of our Jupyter Notebook file. Before we get started with the solutions to these activities, the first thing we'll need to do is import our libraries and the dataset. I provided this code up here at the top, so all we have to do was go ahead and just run these cells. And then with our data and libraries imported, we were ready to move on to the first activity of the notebook, which was on distribution plots. I asked you to create a distribution plot or histogram for the sepal length column of our dataset, as well as include the KDE. To create a histogram, we can use the sns.displot function, and then we'll need to pass in the column that we want to visualize. Our dataset is actually just called dataset, which is what we set up here at the top when we imported it. So I'll type this in, and then the column we needed was just the sepal length, which I'll put inside a set of square brackets like so. And this would then have created our histogram, but then to add in the KDE line, we could have just set the KDE argument to be equal to true, like we looked at in our lecture on distribution plots. And then just as an extra finishing touch, I also set the colour to be green, but this really wasn't needed. Okay, perfect. For our title, this was just a distribution of sepal length, so I'll call the plt.title function and set this here. Activity 2 was on bar charts, so one of the categorical plot types that we looked at earlier on in the section. We have to create a bar chart showing the average sepal length for each species of iris. The function for bar charts is called barplot in Seaborn. So sns.barplot, and then we'll need to provide our three arguments of x, y, and then the data. As we can see here, we have our species plotted on the x-axis, so I'll set that, and then we needed the average sepal length for our values, or y-axis. And finally, for our data, this would just have been our dataset. As we looked at in our lecture on categorical plots, bar charts also need an estimator argument, but by default, this is set to be the mean, so as we actually wanted to plot the average, in this case, we wouldn't need to set this argument. And let's not forget the title here. Okay, there we go. So our plot here matches the example exactly. Next up, we had a question on scatter plots. For this one, we just needed to plot the sepal length on our x-axis, the petal length on our y-axis, but then also colour code and break our points down by the species of iris too. And to do this, we could have used the hue argument. I'll start off by calling the sns.scatterplot function, and then the arguments will be pretty much as we said before, with x being the sepal length, y being the petal length, our data will just be the dataset, and finally the hue, which was for the species column. And just to finish this off, I'll add in our title, and this again matches the plot below perfectly. For our final question, this was on box plots, and should have hopefully been quite straightforward for you. From the instructions, as well as from the example plot here, we can see that we needed the species on our x-axis again, and then we were plotting the values for the sepal width this time. So SNS.boxplot, the species on the x-axis, sepal width on our y-axis, and finally, just the data. Of course, along with our title too. And then this just shows us the distribution of our sepal width for each species, with the Setosa species of iris clearly having the largest average width, but it does also have one outlier down here at the bottom with relatively a very low width too. And then of course, we just get all of the other information that our box plots show, like the quartiles, median, and ranges for our other species too. Okay, so that was it there for the practice activities for this section. There was just a couple of questions here, but these really are the most fundamental and helpful charts that you'll need to be able to create in Seaborn. I hope you found this section to be helpful and interesting, and as well now that you can also see how powerful and easy Seaborn is to use. We were able to create all of these different charts and plots here with just a single line of code. If you've got any questions or problems with anything that we've covered here, then like usual, then please post them down in the Q&A section below. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all in the next section where we're actually going to begin working through an example data analysis project, which will be a fantastic opportunity to put all of these skills and knowledge that we've learned so far into practice. And as well, we'll also add in a few new skills as well as some new functions too. So I hope you're excited for this, because it's going to be a really valuable learning opportunity, as well as a great first portfolio project that you can use and show off as well. So let's go and have a quick break now, and I'll see you all back in the next section.